guys, it's Galicia. Welcome to this week's topic, which is all about senior rep recruiting. And last week, there was a great question asked in the coffee house about, what does it take to recruit your current team? And I thought, you know what, I'm going to share my numbers today about exactly the things that I did in my recruiting process this year, and give you those numbers. So if you're hopping on, say hello. If you're hopping on, let me know if you've recruited your senior rep team already, or if you're in the process, or if you're done, let me know. But I wanted to share my numbers with you because I learned a lot through this process. So this week, like I said, I'm going to be talking about senior rep recruiting and my numbers explained. Hey, Melissa. Okay, so first of all, I wanted you to visualize what this looks like, but I look at my senior rep process as a funnel. And so, the top part is where people are filtering in through the process. And then as you go down into the funnel, in the end, I'm left with my signed and paid senior reps. And so I'm going to talk about what those numbers are. Hey, Stephanie. Hey, Jessica. Okay, so here are my final stats, and it's actually quite staggering. It took me a good hour or two to go through. Let me just show you what I was doing. I busted out my Instagram, and I have, I think, like 7 pages worth of stats. But just to kind of show you, look at all of these statistics that I was writing down. I mean, pages and pages of statistics. I love numbers, and so I was really happy to be writing these down and kind of just going through like, ooh, that looks cool, or wow, I didn't know. So let's just start with how many impressions total that it took to recruit my final 22 that signed up and paid. So just to give you the time frame, I started the week before Thanksgiving. And then it took me about 11 weeks. And in between the 11 weeks, I took 3 weeks off, not together, but like a week off during Thanksgiving, a week off, I think the first week of December, or the second week of December, or something like that. And then another week I didn't, I think it was like New Year's Eve till the first part of the year. I took that week off as well. As far as meaning, I didn't post anything on social media about my team. So there was a couple of weeks where I didn't show up. But overall, it was 11 weeks, and I had to so I generated over 53,000 impressions. You guys, that's a ton of impressions. So that just goes to show you that this number, if you're thinking about my funnel, way at the top, I had to generate 53,000 impressions just so that I could get people to view my landing page about my team. So if you're thinking about how much you have to show up, that should tell you how much you have to show up just to filter down the funnel. So from 53,000 plus impressions, I got 378 people on my landing page. That's how many people viewed my landing page. And I think that number is a little miscued just because I know, some photographers went and checked it out, but that's okay because that just goes to show you how much you have to show up on social media just to get that much views on your landing page. So it went from 53,000 plus impressions to 378 people viewing my landing page. From there, if they entered their email, then it would generate an automatic email to say, hey, this is what my program's all about. But from the 378 views on my landing page, 70 people said, you know what, this sounds like it's a good gig for me, and they gave me their email address. And so 70 people actually subscribed. I was using MailChimp for this process. 70 people gave me their email saying that, yes, I want to know more about your program, about your team. And then of those 70 emails, 60 people opened that email. So you can see, again, the filter, the funnel is getting narrower and narrower, if that makes sense. So 60 people opened my email. So of those 60 people, 29 people actually click through my Acuity link to make an appointment to meet with me. So they're saying, yes, my mom and I want to come meet with you. And so 29 people made that appointment. So again, the conversion from 378 to 70 people saying, yes, I want to know more about your program is about 40%. So that's pretty high, considering that industry standard when you're doing conversions is roughly about 20%. So I felt pretty good about getting 40% conversion from that. And then from the open email rate, from 70 people saying, yes, I want to know about it, but only 60 opened it, that conversion rate I'm pretty happy with too, because that's roughly what, 80% ish, somewhere in there. But of that 60%, or the 60 that opened the email, 29 people made an appointment. So they actually clicked through my Acuity, made an appointment to come see me. And so of the 29 that made appointments with me, I had 3 cancellations. So these are people that made an appointment and they responded, or they emailed me or texted me and said, hey, you know what, we just can't make our meeting. And I think it's because maybe they heard about from a previous person what the investment was for my program, which is fine. Saved me some time from having to meet with them and having them come back and say no. And then of the 29 appointments, so I had 3 say cancellations and 4 say no. So these are the 4 they actually met with me and they said they declined after they've heard all the information. And then I had 22 that ended up being on my team. So to put that all into perspective, the part that I was really wowed about for myself, if I'm, I'm reflecting on the whole process right now, is that I guess let me back up. Here's the things that I learned about this whole process. Okay, number 1, actually, let me back it up even more. Here's some things that I did before I launched my program. Just a few things, okay? I warmed up my audience. So that meant that I showed up consistently, not only on my Instagram post, my Instagram feed, but I showed up on Instagram stories. And I felt that Instagram stories, I know I'm just kind of like reverting backwards, but on Instagram stories, I showed up consistently there, maybe not as much as I wanted to, but I definitely showed up consistently there because Instagram stories are where you're going to make connections with people. This is where you're not necessarily going to gain new followers, but you're going to deepen the know, like, trust factor. So Insta Stories to me is a platform, is part of the platform, Instagram platform, where you are going to make connections, where you're going to build relationships and not necessarily get new followers, because you're going to do that in your Instagram feed, right? So I made sure that I was warming up my audience beforehand. And this could take months, people. If you're a business account on your Instagram, I highly encourage you to go look at your insights and what is your audience made up of predominantly? Is it made up predominantly of teens, or is it made up predominantly of, adults? And if you're on the teen side, then definitely engaging, following new people, new teens is what you want to be doing to increase that audience, right? That because that's who you're going to be recruiting. So you want to take a look at your statistics, your analytics, to see what your audience is made up of, and if you're pitching to the wrong type of audience, then you need to change your audience, right? And so that's where you're going to be following new teens. You're going to be engaging with teens. You're going to be showing up. So I warmed up my audience beforehand, and this can take, like I said, months. It could take weeks. It could I've been doing it consistently for several years now. So my audience is already there, but I wanted to definitely make sure that I was showing up every single day on Instagram through my stories so that I could start to have that conversation when I was getting ready to launch. Okay. So while I was warming up my audience, I did a couple of things. I took some time and reviewed what my program, the current state of my program, what was working and what didn't work. And this is a good time for me to reflect on those things that I wanted to change or tweak, update some things on my program, and really make sure that it was, it's the way that I want it to be for this upcoming year. And then another thing that I did was gathered up testimonials. So I actually made it so easy for myself. I had a Friendsgiving, and and while they were here, I asked them some questions, and they text me their answers so that I had them on my phone. Easy peasy. It was awesome. And so that now I had my testimonials. So the next step that I took was I got some things ready for my launch, my campaign, my senior recruiting process. So what I did was I went a different route this time. I looked at MailChimp because they have amazing metrics. So I created my landing page there. I used Acuity, which you guys all know. If you don't know, I'm a huge fan of Acuity, and I made that the tool to use the one-on-one meeting scheduler for myself. I also prepped canned responses. So I had a response for cold leads, I had a response for warm leads, and I had a response for nominations. And then I also took a calendar. I didn't know how long it was going to take, but I also, I created a calendar where I was going to talk about certain aspects of my program through my marketing. And so I brain dumped different marketing ideas and sort of decided when I was going to post those and how I was going to post those. So it was just a little sketch. And then moving on to the things that I did during my launch. So during my launch, like I mentioned before, I wanted to double down on Instagram stories. I made sure that the type of marketing that I was doing on Instagram stories was engaging, always I shouldn't say always have a call to action, but they were engaging, that I had a call to action, that I was using the stickers and the features of Instagram stories to create that engagement and have that dialogue in my DMs, I guess you can say. But I really doubled down on Insta stories. It really made a difference as to, not having to campaign really on Facebook or on the Instagram feed itself. Plus I can keep track of again, beautiful thing with Insta stories, you can see how many people are clicking through your, to your profile, how many people are heading to your landing page. I could really keep track of those metrics. So I did that during the launch. I also used my current team. I leveraged their Insta stories this year, which was really cool. It was funny because I had talked about the Fire Festival Netflix show that I watched a couple weeks ago in this group, and I did a similar campaign to that without knowing that I was doing that. So I did leverage my current clients, which was pretty cool. So I guess you could call them influencers. I also showcased new recruits as they were signing up. So that really helped me keep the momentum in stories, not just in mine, but also they would share that post or that Insta story on their account. So those are some things that I did this year to prep for it, to put together and map out how I was going to recruit this year. But here's some things that I've learned about recruiting. I think this year was probably the easiest year, even though it took 11 weeks, because I did have a plan. And that's the key, is you have to have this mapped out before, so it makes it easy to know what you're going to do next. Because when you don't have a plan, you're essentially throwing a noodle, to the wall, and you're hoping that it sticks. And having a plan was a huge difference for me. Not that I didn't have one before, but this one was just really mapped out. I took the time to really map it out. Another thing that I learned was, like I mentioned before, was doubling down on Insta stories. This is where my audience is hanging out. And I read a statistic a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was last year, that there's roughly 400 million people using Insta stories daily. That's a huge number. It's superseding Snapchat, and it's even superseding even the Facebook feed itself. I wouldn't say superseding, but it's pretty darn close with, 1 billion users on Instagram. It really, I was going to double down on that. I knew it. I knew that was going to make it easier for me to recruit my team this year. The third thing that I learned this year was that mapping out how I'm going to filter people through my recruiting process made the difference in everything that I did. Just taking a piece of paper and graphing out and writing out how I'm going to filter people through my process. Easy. It was easy to say, oh, I need something here, or this part of my recruiting process isn't working. I need to revamp that. But really just mapping it out, creating this roadmap of how I was going to filter people in made a huge difference. The fourth thing that I learned through my recruiting process is that using tools that show you numbers. Like I said, I wouldn't be able to come up with those numbers and know what was working and what wasn't working if I didn't use tools that gave me metrics. And Instagram stories gives you metrics. It tells you how many people are clicking through to your profile, how many people are clicking through to your website. And using Linktree really helped, again, solidify how many people were actually clicking on that link. And then using MailChimp, how many people were actually landing on my page to view it, and how many people were actually clicking through. That really helped me see where people were falling off and where people were actually continuing through, and where I could follow up. And so that made me do things a little bit more intentionally this year. And I now have that data for next year to say, guess what, this worked, this didn't work, this type of, this process part right here, I need to, revamp or whatever. Now I have data, so I can go back and see where I can make those changes a lot easier. And then number 5, the last one, is that you don't need to give yourself a deadline. How many of you guys are saying, oh, I need to have, I need to be done by such and such date, or you're closing off your application by a certain date? You can have a deadline, but I think for me, not having a deadline for the recruiting process, and just accepting that it's going to take as long as it takes to get my clients, really helped me. It just was relieving to me to not have that expectation of myself that if I cut it off, I may need to continue recruiting, or the deadline is just because it's a self-inflicted deadline. But it took the pressure off, and it allowed me to trust the process. It allowed me to be patient, and that I was doing it on my terms and not on anyone else's terms. And if I look at the 11 weeks of me recruiting, it wasn't a ton of, it was effort, but it wasn't I still had Christmas with my family. I still did Thanksgiving. I still had Friendsgiving with my clients. I had family over. I was judging the top 50 contest. It allowed me that space that I needed to enjoy my life and not be 100%, recruiting. And so that's what I learned, is that I have to just be patient and trust the process, and it takes as long as it takes to get my clients. And I loved that part of it. So I didn't feel as bombarded as I have, in years past, but certainly knowing these numbers really helped me with my recruiting process this year. And now I know it's even going to be better for next year. So there you have it. My numbers explained. If you can take away anything about my recruiting process, is that, it takes effort, it takes planning. And when you have the plan in place, it makes it easier for you to know what to do next. It makes it easier for you to be able to tweak where your funnel is not working, and how are you directing people through your funnel. I am going to go, for those of you who have my senior rep program, how to structure your senior rep course, I'm going to go live in that group this Thursday and explain. I'm going to show you the roadmap that I have created. I'm going to go through step by step what types of posts did I post on Instagram stories. I'm going to break it down week by week, numbers explained week by week of what posts that I posted in Instagram stories and how it correlated to my my statistics. So on Thursday, if you guys are part of that group, how to structure your senior rep program, I'm going to go in depth this Thursday in there. But in the meantime, I hope this was helpful to you. I hope you're able to see the magnitude of recruiting. Isn't just like, hey, I'm just going to do this and that. You really need to have a plan in place to be able to execute in a way that, is efficient, and also getting the numbers, getting the people to sign up for your program. So, and that it doesn't just start with the campaign, it starts beforehand. You got to start before planning and prepping your audience, in addition to your launch program. So with that, I hope that helps, and I hope that you guys, your recruiting process is going well, and that if you have any questions for me, let me know. But other than that, I'll see you guys later, and thanks for hopping on live with me. We'll see ya. Bye.